Hi everybody. So this episode is going to be a little different than typical Esoterica episodes because we're kind of celebrating reaching 100,000 subscribers. So one of the things that I've promised on the channel a few times is that we would do a shelf tour. Now, I didn't know what shelf tours were until people started requesting them, so I looked it up and now I kind of have an idea. Why they're popular is a little bit beyond me, but we're going to do one. So what I want to do is take you around my home and show you some of the books that I have on my shelf. Because as you probably imagine, I mean, Esoterica, the type of content that I produce requires some pretty weird books. And they're not the kind of books you can just stroll into a Barnes & Noble or a typical bookstore and pick up. In fact, many local libraries don't even have these books. So this somewhat precipitates me having to buy a lot of books, which is part of the reason why I'm so thankful for the subscriber count and the folks that support the channel on Patreon. You'd be surprised about how much money I have to throw at books to make content. So what I want to do is kind of walk around with you, show you some of the books on my shelf, and talk about maybe some of the more interesting ones, and maybe you can make fun of me for some of the more silly ones that I have. I don't know, but let's walk around. Let's start actually here on the first floor of the house. Let's start with our Sfarim, that is to say our sacred Jewish texts. As you might imagine, I have a good bit of Kabbalah. So let's go take a look at some books in Hebrew, some Sfarim, some holy books. All right, folks, so start down here with some, most of these books over here are technical books on Jewish law. So starting here with the left, we have the Mishnah, and then the Sansino Babylonian Talmud, along with a few shofarot, a few horns. Also, Menorahsaurus. So going down, we have some volumes here of more Talmud, all right, so, and some mezuzot. There is a prayer book here. We have the Jastrow classic dictionary of the Talmud and the Targum. This is invaluable if you're going to be doing Talmud study. Cool book on Jewish monsters. We have a cool book here. This is a copy of Mordecai Kaplan, who is the rabbi that I follow, actually. And what's cool about this copy of Mordecai Kaplan, actually, is that it is actually signed by Rabbi Kaplan of blessed memory, and it's actually made out to my in-laws. So that's a cool one there. What else do we have? We have some more volumes of the Talmud, some other random books here. The Robert Alter translation of the Book of Psalms. More Talmud, because the Talmud never ends. I'm not kidding, it really never ends. So more Talmud, some more dictionaries, a Book of Levinas. What is it? It looks like an art scroll, Siddur. So you want to do some praying. Down here, more books on Judaism, some Jewish law texts. Again, not terribly interesting from the Esoterica perspective. Over here, this is Shulchan Aruch. So these are all texts of Jewish law. This is Mishnah Torah by Maimonides. It's a complete Mishnah Torah. It's a very long text. This is very controversial. This thing was actually banned early on, and then actually burned at one point. So a very controversial text by Maimonides. Some more text here of the Mishnah Torah. Some more text on Halakha, Jewish law. So a lot of text here on Jewish law. This is mostly prayer books, as you can see. So Sidurim and Machzorim. So prayer books for the holidays, and prayer books for high holidays and just regular days. Down here, it's some more books of Agadah and Midrash. Some stuff by Steinsaltz. Very important grammar and practical text here for studying Aramaic. These are the must-haves if you're going to be studying Aramaic, with the text by Frank. Can't really get along without those. And then what do we have down here? Some books of Jewish folklore, another book of the Talmud, a random Atlas Mayor. How about that? We have this cool cheat guide, the Gemara card. This thing is fantastic if you're going to be studying the Babylonian Talmud. It has all these, basically it's all like the abbreviations and everything you would need if you're really studying it hardcore in the original Aramaic. So you have all the abbreviations, you have some basics of Aramaic grammar and things like that. This thing is invaluable. It's great. What else do we have down here? There is a Tikkun. Tikkun is a book to help you learn to read the Torah, some stuff in Jewish folklore. But all things told, nothing so interesting here from the Esoterica side of things, but some prayer books and things like that. Now, move over to the shelf over here, we get into more Kabbalah. So let's go check that out. All right, so coming over here, we have, as you might imagine, this is the 12-volume Pritzker Sefer Zohar. There in the translation primarily by Daniel Matt, but also living right next to it, essential reading, is the Zohar in the original Aramaic. This edition is kind of cool because, one, it's really cheap, and two, it is both in Aramaic, but it also includes, very coolly, a translation into Hebrew, the Lashon Kodesh, and also, as you can see in the image here maybe, it's also manukad, which means that it has the vowels. So this is really, really convenient if you're studying the Zohar. The text is already damn near impenetrable, and so having a copy of it here, translated into Hebrew, but also with the original Aramaic and manukad with vowels, makes things very easy. Next door to the Zohar is a copy, is a collected works of Abraham Abulafia. This is all of the works of Abraham Abulafia. This edition is not terribly good, but it's basically the only one that really exists. You can also see that they number the volumes using these little stars, which is kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. But that is the collected works of Abulafia. This is a cool little amulet, a microfilm amulet of Sefer Razio. So these are really convenient for protecting your house from fire. So this is a cool little amulet, the printed on microfilm. Of course, have my rabbi trading cards. Very important, if you need to have an image there of Rav Yosef Tzvi Jujinsky, you have it. We have the Bostoner Rebbe, all kinds of people. So these are cool rabbinical trading cards. You can collect all of them. Rav Yosef Eliyahu Henkin, he looks very tired. One day I will look like that. But going down, scooping down here, what do we have? This is Midrash Rabbah, so we have the entire text of Midrash Rabbah in Hebrew. Living next door to Midrash Rabbah is the Communist Manifesto in Yiddish. Of course, the Communist Manifesto in Yiddish, living right there next to Midrash Rabbah. Someone's rolling in their grave. It's fantastic. We have Maimonides, of course, the Guide to the Perplexed. In the Hebrew, we have the Malcha Elyon. This is an encyclopedia of angels, primarily from the Talmud and the Zohar. Tomer Devora. We have a Tikkun for Shavuot, which includes some cool Kabbalistic stuff. Let's see here. It's hard for me to read this with the gold on the side. The Shiur Koma. We have some other texts. We have Eitz Chaim by Chaim Vital, of course. Eitz Chaim is the quintessential reading for Kabbalah. We have Shar HaGilgulim. This is the works of books on reincarnation by Luria, or really by Vital. More volumes here of Kabbalah. What's this? This is a cool book on the Sephirotic tree. So if you're really interested in really getting into the tree of the Sefirot, the really complicated stuff, this contains a very elaborated system of the Sefirot with very complicated commentary. And let's see if I can get an image here of some of the pages. So yeah, we can see all the complicated stuff that goes into the Tree of Life. Of course, it's far more complicated than people actually think. They think it's just the 10 Sefirot. Of course, it's not. There are far more than that, including all the klipot and things like that. So this is a cool book on just a small analysis on the Sefirot. Cool book. Very useful. So jumping down, what else do we have here? We have the Tanya, essential reading for my Chabad folks. We have the Baal HaSulim, the Rehuda Ashlag's commentary on the Zohar. Some books on amulets. These are some books on amulets here. What else? Some books, more books on Kabbalah. Let's see. This is the collected works of Moshe de Leon. That is not the Zohar. So these are the works he wrote that are not counted in the Zohar. So those are really cool. Most people never read those, but those are really neat to read. Text written by Moshe de Leon, the guy at some level responsible for the Zohar, but these are texts, these are non-Zohar texts. Of course, we have just standard Chumash. I would say very boring, but I don't want to get struck by lightning. Some text of Chaim Luzzatto. If we jump down here, what else do we have? Yes, we have the collected works of the Arizal. Yes, Isaac Luria, folks. This is the collected works of Isaac Luria, all of the volumes. So if you want to study the works, the real Kabbalah, hardcore Kabbalah, this is where you're going to be wanting to live, and I'll probably be living here the rest of my life studying these texts. So these are the primary documents of Lurianic Kabbalah. All kinds of cool stuff in there. Eitz Chaim, Shar Gilgalim, all kinds of stuff. Then, of course, more Torahs. You can't have too many copies of the Torah, so we have lots of copies of the Torah, random pair of binoculars. Jumping down, the Leibowitz commentary on the Torah, very important. Woman commentary on the Torah, not so random edition of Midrash Rabbah. So of course we have Midrash Rabbah. Got to study the Midrashim, sort of the foundation in many ways for Kabbalah. Then jumping down here, what do we have? More copies of the Torah and some old. Yeah, this is lots of copies of the Torah. There's R.E.A. Kaplan's translation of the Torah. It's very nice, sort of Kabbalistically infused. Random academic, boring copy of the Torah, but or the Bible rather. So there's that. Jumping up, what do we have? Random copies of the Talmud. Random Masechta of the Talmud. I don't know, what do we have? Baba Batra. This is probably from my partner when she was in rabbinical school studying the Talmud. So do some deep dives in the Talmud, so you buy these really nice ones. We have Maftiach. This is a fantastic index of the Babylonian Talmud, essential if you're really going to be diving deep into the Talmud study, especially in English, if you're not sort of a Talmud Chacham. If you really want to get deep in the Talmud, HaMaftiach is for you. So we have some more books of Kabbalah. So Sha'ari Ura, this is Joseph Kikatia. We have some texts here of the Sefer Yetzirah, very important commentary collection here of the Sefer Yetzirah. Some nice books about Jewish art. More texts here of Talmud, of Torah commentary. Another text here of the Tree of Life. This is actually a rolled out version, a scroll version. I should actually point the camera at it so you can see it. This is a scroll version of the Tree of Life. I might unroll this later and show you. It's kind of cool. It's printed back in Jerusalem way back in the day. Jumping down. Of course, more copies of the Bible. This is Mikra Gedolot. So this is a Torah with tons and tons of commentary. So that's all the major commentary, folks like Ibn Ezra and stuff. Rashi. Speaking of Rashi, speak of the devil, there he is, Rashi. Of course, we have the art scroll Rashi. Ramban, not to be confused with Rambam. More Ramban's commentary there on the Torah. Of course, you can't have too much commentary on the Torah. The Baal HaTurim, the Chumash here by Art Scroll, of course. This is a really great commentary that is really gematria infused. There's a lot of gematria in the Baal Haturim, although he's known for that, but he did a lot more stuff than that too. But it's a cool, very gematria commentary on the Torah. Art scroll of the prophets. So this is all the major and minor prophets. Illustrated version of Pirkei Avot. Another copy of Sefer Yetzirah, because you can't have too many copies of Sefer Yetzirah. And some Hasidic stuff. And of course down here, rando books. So more rando books. History of the Jews. Some rando Kabbalah book. The Kabbalah book, which must be some intro book. I'm not sure where that came from. And a text on halakha, Jewish law. So all things told, folks, what we have mostly down here is all the Hebrew text in there, or many Hebrew texts, not all of them obviously, but many Hebrew texts here, some of them in translation, some of them in the original language, a lot of them, like the text here of Abraham Abba Lafia. Of course, that text has never been translated, doesn't even have a real decent edition even in Hebrew. So, but at least we have that copy. So again, this is mostly a ton of Kabbalah. So a lot of Kabbalah text here. Try to consult these as much as I can. I'll spend a lifetime getting through them, especially these bad boys, the collected works of the Arizal of Itzhak Luria, performed or written by Chaim Vital. This, of course, was a lifetime worth of study. Easy. But you're not here just for Kabbalah, so let's go upstairs to my study, and let's take a look at some more specifically esoteric books up there. All right, folks. Well, welcome to my study. This is actually where I film Esoterica content or do live streams, and so this is actually my study, my lair, as my wife has it. So welcome to my lair. So as you can see, lots and lots and lots of books and weird stuff, lights obviously for filming YouTube content or other kinds of content. So this is my study. I'll go ahead and warn you that it is always a complete mess, and it's always a complete mess because I live in here and work in here, and so it's always a complete mess. So I cleaned it up a little bit, but not much, so you have to forgive me for how dusty it is. But I mean, could you imagine an undusty study? It seems like a contradiction in terms. Who could possibly have an undusty study? So yes, very dusty. So where to begin? Well, I guess we can begin over here. So this is my scripture collection. This is a bunch of scripture. So ironically or unironically, I have a bunch of communist literature here. So this is Marx and Engels and Lenin, Rosa Luxemburg, Trotsky, Mao Zedong, the Zapatistas, all this stuff. So as you can imagine, they're all rolling in there, sitting next to each other. I can imagine that Mao and Trotsky sitting next to each other are causing each other to roll in their graves. So that's good. Of course, we have Lenin here glaring back at us on top of a dollar bill next to the little red book, and a flask, and a copy of the Communist Manifesto. So, communist scripture, jumping down, of course, have the Hebrew Bible, the Biblia Hebraicus Stuttgartensia, sort of used to be the classic standard edition, academic edition of the Bible, but I think it's now the Biblia Quinta, I think, has replaced it. Old Testament pseudepigrapha, the Apocrypha, some writings of Paul, some Bibles here, and Latin and Greek, a Novum Testamentum Latinae and a Vulgata, so the Bible in Latin and Greek. Get the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Got to make sure to believe that. You don't want to be a heretic. Of course, the classic copy of the NOAB, my favorite translation of the Bible. That there's Martin Luther hanging out, hiding right next to the Bible in Latin. And of course, we have the Genza Rabbah, the principal text of the Mandeans, modern Gnostic folk. So, modern English translation of the Mandeans. Jumping down to this level, this great collection of texts on Zoroastrianism. It's really a sort of a collected text of essays and stuff, or it's basically an encyclopedia on Zoroastrianism. It's, in my opinion, the best collected 2-volume text on Zoroastrianism. A couple more texts on Zoroaster. We have some copies of the Quran. There's one in Arabic. We have the Study Quran, which is really nice. What else do we have down here? Some hadith. This is the Bukhari hadith. some of the copies of the Quran, some text on Islamic jurisprudence and theology, a biography of Muhammad, Milestones by Said Qutb. That book's had a real negative impact in the world in a lot of ways. Next here we have a collection of the Norton Anthology on World Religions, probably the best anthology one can get if you just want a giant anthology of all the world religions. I highly recommend that. And of course, living next to that is the Marquis de Sade, the Divine Marquis, his fantastic works of straightforward, horrifying pornography should always live unironically, absolutely unironically next to Scripture. So, of course, the Marquis de Sade, Scripture in his own right. Moving up, what do we have up here? Oh, philosophy. Of course, philosophy. Dastardly philosophy. So we have the Copleston, 11-volume history of philosophy. This is one of my favorite histories of philosophy. It's my go-to if I really need a refresher or something. It goes all the way up to logical positivism. So Russian philosophy. So Copleston's really fantastic. And then we kind of go in a lot of ways in alphabetic order. And of course, we have a Kabar knife here, just in case these pesky philosophers. Yeah, you just never know. You just can't trust Parmenides, and there's Martin Heidegger. So this is really just in alphabetical, not in alphabetical order, in historical order. So we start off sort of with the pre-Socratics, and we just kind of work our way forward. So there's a ton of work here on Plato and Aristotle. So we jump down. More philosophy, of course, here with Aristotle, some text Cicero, metaphysics, classic text of Hellenistic philosophy, the Long and Steadily. We have the collected fragments of the Stoics, because I love the Stoics. Some more books on the Stoics, Philo. And then we jump up into Neoplatonism. So we have a ton of stuff on Neoplatonism, the classic Dodds text, the Greeks and the Irrational. Some text on Cicero and more Marcus Aurelius. Of course, the obligatory Stephen McKenna translation of the Enneads of Plotinus. So obviously got to have that there. What is this? Some random black metal patches that I have yet to put onto my hoodies or whatever. Some great stuff in some patches here in Yiddish. Wolves in the Throne Room patch, of course. I think that's a weakling. Random picture of me and my brother when we were little. So that's little Justin and his brother, Jonathan. So, hey, Jonathan, if you're watching. So that's a great picture of us when we were kiddos. Jumping down, what do we have? Yes, Proclus's commentary on the Parmenides. That's beast. Good stuff. Moving on, right? Deep into Plotinus and Neoplatonism land. So we've lots of Neoplatonism, Iamblichus, all kinds of stuff. Oh man, St. Augustine, City of God, De Civita Dei. So we have that. And then we kind of jump into the Middle Ages, right? I got a little bit of Dark Ages stuff, Boethius, and John Scotus Origenum, great philosopher. Early Neoplatonists. Then we jump into the Middle Ages. So tons here, medieval philosophy, Saadia Gaon, some Islamic philosophy as well. Al-Ghazali, obligatory Al-Ghazali. I have also Suhrawardi, Philosophy of Illumination, which is an excellent, excellent text. We have Ibn Rushd, living close enough to Al-Ghazali that they could fight to the death. We have the Decisive Treatise, and I also have the Tahafut al-Tahafut, which is some of the best beef in the history of philosophy. Of course, Al-Ghazali wrote the Tahafut al-Falsifa, the Incoherence of the Philosophers, and Averroes, Ibn Rushd, came along later and wrote to the Tahafut al-Tahafut, the Incoherence of the Incoherence. Some choji oil, just in case you need to oil your swords, or straight razors for that matter. Not that I have much of a need for a straight razor with this beardo life. Anselm, Occam, the Kuzari, Maimonides. There he is, the great eagle. Of course, he was going to make an appearance. So we have lots of stuff here on Maimonides. There's the Tahafut al-Tahafut of Ibn Rushd. Some stuff here of Crescas, who was a great philosopher from the 14th century. Is that right? 14th century? Sometime around then. 15th century. Of course, you're not going to get out of here without some Aquinas, bad boy Thomas. There he is with the some selections here from the Summa and some concise translation of the Summa. I have an edition of On Spiritual Creatures, and of course the Summa Contra Gentiles, very important text, and the development of medieval philosophy. What else we got? The fun never ends. Philosophy Land. So some more stuff on scholastic philosophy. We have the 3-volume Wars of the Lord, Milchamat Hashem by Gersonides. It's a fantastic, one of my favorite medieval works of philosophy. General Bruno, there's our boy. So we have some Bruno here. We have Pico. We're now firmly into Renaissance philosophy land. So there he is, Ficino. You knew he was going to make an appearance, of course. We have some Ficino. There is his 6-volume, my goodness, 6-volume Platonic Theology. That thing's bare, but good reading. The Eternality of the Soul, big point in Ficino land. Of course, some more Pico, some more stuff here. Medieval philosophy, going to get now into Machiavelli. There's Corny Grips, folks. Cornelius Agrippa's declamation on the superiority of women, and his that's a great little volume. And of course, right, we have some history of political philosophy down there as well. Kind of out of order, but Machiavelli and Galileo. And moving on. We're not done with philosophy, folks. Don't even think that we're done with philosophy. What else do I have? Collected writings, philosophical writings at least, of Descartes, of course. Random Beaker and Mosin Nagant bayonet, of course, because you never know when you have to just, bayonet Nazis. Pretty good, these Mosin Nagant bayonets for that kind of thing, apparently. What else here we have? We have, now we're into rationalism, Descartes, Hobbes, Spinoza. As you can tell, I am an aficionado of Spinoza because all of that is basically Spinoza, except for that jar there. That is actually vintage absinthe. So that is what's left of that bottle that I opened way back in the day. So that's all vintage absinthe. I have to drink some of that later. What else? This is all Spinoza. So you can see there's tons of Spinoza there about that Spinoza life. This is cool. This is a copy of the Ethics translated into Hebrew. So this is Etika translated into Hebrew. It's a really cool edition. It's really interesting seeing them trying to wrestle with getting Spinoza and his weird metaphysics to work in Hebrew. Moving on past Spinoza, a little bit of Leibniz here, folks. A little bit of Leibniz. We'll get some Hume and Kant. Of course, Kant, you know he was going to make an appearance. There's Kant in German. We have a lot of the Kant there in translation. The various critiques and his work on ethics. Great stuff, Kant. So it's a great book on Kant by Walter Hanegraaff. So this is a great edition on the Spirit Seer and other writings. So this is interesting stuff on Kant's pre-critical works that has something to do with Western esotericism, in fact. Adam Smith, The Invisible Hand Will Save Us All. So yes, we got Adam Smith here. Got some women philosophy stuff, which is nice. Mary Wollstonecraft. Some more political philosophy, radical enlightenment. Lenin, there he is. He's back again. Random papers, who knows? God knows. Also, this is a small collection I have of World War II era sake glasses, which are kind of neat. These are really, actually rather pretty in some ways. So these are World War II era and slightly before sake glasses. So those are kind of cool. All right. Now we're getting into some Hegel. Of course, you know that Hegel's going to be making an appearance because, of course he is. So we have tons of Hegel. This entire shelf is basically Hegel, with the exception over there of Schopenhauer, lurking in the dark as he is wont to do. Down there with the will. This is my drinking horn that I made. So I carved it myself. I didn't make the horn. Of course, animal did that, but carved it. This is some runes here I carved from Havamal. So it's a nice drinking horn. It's good for Ren fairs and Dungeons and Dragons, etc. But yes, Hegel. So as you would imagine, tons and tons of Hegel here. We have some of his work in German, actually, which is nice. Hegel's a lot easier to understand in German. So we have his philosophy, his lectures on the history of philosophy and other stuff. So lots and lots on Hegel. Like I said, Schopenhauer lurking there, over there. And of course, Schopenhauer is going to be over here as well. So we have some more Schopenhauer. This is a new Cambridge translations of Schopenhauer that are out that are fantastic. Whoops. So more Schopenhauer, getting into the Nietzsche world. I'm not a big fan of Nietzsche, I have to admit. I don't really like Nietzsche. Never really understood why anyone is terribly interested in Nietzsche. He just does not interest me much at all. But have the obligatory Nietzsche at least. Some more Marx. There's Schopenhauer, Die Welt als Wille und Vorstellung, the big ass German edition of Schopenhauer. This is my soldering kit and moisture meter, random stuff that I have. What's here? Oh, Freud. Of course, Freud is lurking down at the very bottom in the primordial id, the unconscious mind. Freud's lurking down here on the bottom shelf along with Bergson. And what else do we have over here? History of philosophy, the Johann Jakob Brücker. This is a very important history of philosophy from the 18th century. In fact, Wouter Hanegraaff would argue, I think this is decisive in the history of the development of Western esotericism, so a very important philosophy of Johann Jakob Brücker. Some books in French, Deleuze and Guattari, Jean-Paul Sartre, Levinas, Georges Bataille. A lot of Deleuze. I used to really be in the Deleuze and Guattari. Got some Foucault over there, Discipline and Punish. So this is a couple of books, rando books that I've had. Ooh, Guy Debord, the Society of the Spectacle, great text. We have Lacan, of course, Lacan, one of my favorites. But yes, there's just some editions in French in order to read them in their original. Far better in their original. Oh boy, philosophy never ends. Random throwing stars. These things are fun to throw at stuff. I don't know. Rando absinthe glass, of course. Another beaker. What else? So more philosophy. We're now in the 20th century, so we have some stuff by Lukács. It's a philosopher I really appreciate a lot. Heidegger, very important philosopher, whether you know, he was a Nazi, but what are you going to do? Still decisive, important philosopher. So he was not so great of a guy, but still very important. Leo Strauss, Alfred Whitehead, Process and Reality, a very important text on 20th century metaphysics. Hannah Arendt, Phenomenology. Not a big fan of phenomenology, but still important. You got to read it. Jumping down, this is actually Lovecraft's philosophical writings, which is interesting. Of course, Lovecraft's primarily known for his horror, but he also wrote a little philosophy. He wasn't terribly good at it, but it's still neat to have. What else do we have here? Ein Thou, major works of Wittgenstein, Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, whose name is just so much fun to say. Dialectic of Enlightenment, Horkheimer and Adorno, which terrifies some people. Oh my God. The cultural Marxism conspiracy theory is my favorite. So they're really convinced that these guys are really destroying all of the world. Adorno would be happy. Althusser, decisive philosopher in the history of my philosophical development. We have Bataille, a couple of different texts by Bataille. I'm a big fan of Bataille, although he's terrifying, but still very important. Rando absinthe spoon, sake container thing. Moving on, what do we have over here? Hold on, still plug my light. There we go. Where are we? All right, there we are. So there is some Lacan. We have this cool statue of a Persian archer. So a good bit of Lacan. I'm a fan of Lacan. Some Levinas, Gadamer. This is more post-structuralism, postmodernism stuff, which I'm not a big fan of, honestly. Derrida and Foucault and all that. I'm not a big fan of these guys, but it's still important. Some situationism. Situationism is so fun. A cool book on philosophy of mathematics. So some stuff here on Foucault, Derrida, etc. Again, I'm not a big fan, but still important reading. Moving down, oh boy, we're in Deleuze and Guattari land, so things are going to get weird. Sword polishing kit. So what do we have here? All right, so we have Deleuze, we have difference repetition. We have a good bit of Deleuze and Guattari. For some reason, I have 2 copies of Anti-Oedipus because I'm a glutton for punishment. Just, like to suffer enormously. So there's 2 copies of Deleuze and Guattari's Anti-Oedipus. Some Guattari stuff on his own. I almost wrote my dissertation on Guattari. So I'm a pretty big fan of Guattari, actually. Slavoj Žižek. Some stuff like that. Moving down even further, oh my goodness, what do we have down here? Badiou. So we have some stuff on Badiou, some random papers of Freud, Bernard Stiegler, who's really fascinating. He was a bank robber turned philosopher, wrote some really great stuff. I think he died recently, sadly. And some stuff here on speculative realism, more contemporary philosophy stuff. What else we have? Ooh, John Rawls. 2 copies of John Rawls, A Theory of Justice, because, really amp up your liberalism. So there's John Rawls, a pile of Kipot, of yarmulkes. And, I think toward the end over there, it's just mostly, this is mostly what? Yeah, this is some rando, just philosophy of history and stuff like that. So that's most of the philosophy, folks. Most of the philosophies and rando philosophy books here and there, but that's a lot of philosophy. So that's sort of my philosophy side of things, which again, if you think you see this, you would think I just do philosophy, but nope. All right, what else do we have? Let's move on. Now we're into ancient history stuff. So this is, what do we have here? This is some, this is ancient Egyptian, ancient Mesopotamian literature. So the 3-volume Lichtheim edition on ancient Egyptian literature is fantastic. Everybody should have it. Pyramid texts, a lot of Egyptian stuff, Mesopotamian stuff, some Sumerian stuff, the Jacobson text on Sumerian poetry is fantastic. And then we get into some biblical criticism stuff and history of the ancient Near East. I see Josephus over there hanging out with the Jewish War, a book on Solomon's Temple, which is a cool book on Solomon's Temple, but this is mostly ancient Near East stuff. The book on the Maklu, the witchcraft Maklu, the burning ritual, which is great. I did an episode on that. And moving on. More ancient Near East stuff. It's a great book on the history of Sheol. More books on the ancient Near East. This is some stuff on William Dever's a great book. This book on scribal culture. So this is almost entirely ancient Near East. That's almost all over there. Let me move slightly. As you can see here, this is mostly stuff on the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is really great. Some more World War II era sake cups. So this is mostly ancient Near East stuff. We jump down here. This is mostly stuff on, again, ancient Near East prophecy. So I taught a class on the prophets and prophecy. So this is mostly stuff on the prophets. So it's a bunch of texts there on the prophets and also on the apocalyptic. So I also taught a class on apocalypticism. So this is a text. These are some texts on the development of apocalypticism more generally. This is my old straight razor that I don't use anymore, and a random compass. This is also my seal, actually, here that I have. A friend of mine get made for me. This one's blank, actually, but my actual name is on this one. So you can see I've used it. Oops. There we go. So it's my seal when I sometimes do Japanese or Chinese style calligraphy. So those hide and live in there. Again, more books. Jesus the Magician, Book of Purgatory. This is mostly apocalypticism. Jumping down. Now we're getting into mysticism land. So this is my long entire shelf filled with just copies from the classics of Western spirituality, almost exclusively except for some Simone Weil and stuff over there. But this is just all texts from the classics of Western spirituality series. So Marguerite Porete, Mechtilde Magdeburg, Heidewig, very important Woman Mystic of the Middle Ages, Bernard of Clairvaux. These are roughly in chronological order, so this is just tons of mysticism. Mostly Christian mysticism, but there's some stuff in there that's not Christian mysticism. But this is just one whole shelf of the classics of Western spirituality. Fantastic, fantastic series. You can get these books sometimes used for next to nothing, so I would highly recommend if you really want to get into some mysticism, Christian mysticism or mysticism more generally, you can pick these up. They're fantastic. Speaking of mysticism, jump down here. Now we're in. This is the Bernard McGinn, the running series of Bernard McGinn on the history of Christian mysticism. So those are fantastic texts on mysticism. These are all mostly texts on mysticism down here. This is some text on the philosophy of mysticism and things like that. This is actually an old copy of the Voynich manuscript that I got from Yale way back in the day. What else do we have down here? Oh, a random copy of something in Coptic. Oh yes, Thunder Perfect Mind. So this is Thunder Perfect Mind in the original Coptic. Just happened to have I was working on learning Coptic, so I have some random copies of the Thunder Perfect Mind. But yeah, mostly down here, this is mostly just mysticism, generally speaking, lots of Christian mysticism, but also philosophy of mysticism and things like that. My random sharpening stuff for sharpening knives, random bookmark. But this is mostly Christian mysticism and mysticism more generally. All right, let's keep going. All right, now we're getting into more specifically esoteric stuff. The giant John Dee collected the complete mystical works of John Dee. So that's the Klein edition. That's fantastic. And then, of course, the Skinner meter, which is what I would call it. These are all the texts, many of the texts by Dr. Skinner. So we have a ton of different texts here by Skinner. So most of the stuff I think he's written, it's all fantastic. So a lot of text here by Skinner. Also Cthulhu and some random absinthe. Hi Cthulhu, how you doing, buddy? All right, so the Blue Brick, of course, book 4, Aleister Crowley. We have the Giant Golden Dawn book, the Lesser Key of Solomon. All these books live here comfortably. So pile of Roman coins. They're not really worth anything, but they're kind of neat. More random absinthe glasses. Then what do we have here? This is, you've probably seen this in the background of many different Esoterica episodes. This is just sort of a grab bag collection of things that I have. Piece of obsidian. There's John Dee there. Hi, John. How you doing, buddy? These are some nice crucibles I actually have. These are historic crucibles from probably from the 17th century. So these are actual alchemical crucibles, real ones from history. It's kind of cool. This one's been used, as you can see, which is actually rather cool. Seal of God, in case I want to break out some random Enochian magic, which I don't want to do. Random Enochian magic sounds like a terrible idea. This is a book roll that I made. I actually copied out, I'm going to do this in one hand. I actually copied out the entirety of the first book of Aristotle's Metaphysics. So this is the entirety of Aristotle's Metaphysics, hand copied on papyrus. This was an enormous pain in the ass to do, but came out pretty cool. But maybe I'll unroll it. There you go. You can see. We'll roll it back up later, but you can see this thing runs on for quite some time. This is the entirety of book 1 of Aristotle's Metaphysics, which is kind of cool. It was a cool experiment. Learned a lot doing it. But don't think I will do it again. That's not true. I'll probably do it again. Move this chair. This is actually the chair that I sit in when I shoot Esoterica episodes. So there's my camera and all the stuff that goes along with that. And here's where I sit when I do Esoterica episodes. So to get back behind here, I need to move this chair out of the way so I can show you some of the other books that are back here. What do we have here? Ah, yes. Lynn Thorndike, The History of Magic and Experimental Science. This is good stuff, folks. This is just a fantastic little find. I got this for like $200. Fantastic find. You can see my collection of Japanese puzzle boxes, at least some of them. I really like puzzle boxes. I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is a wax tablet that I made, imitating sort of historical wax tablets. You can see, maybe you can see Roughly, you can see the some geometry lessons. That's from Euclid, and that is me copying out the opening lines of the Aeneid. So that's my wax tablet. Get behind the wax tablet. What do we have? Astrology and magic, of course. So this is the 5-volume, 6-volume History of Astrology and Magic. And next to that lives my astrology books, Chris Brendan's really fantastic History of Hellenistic Astrology, and also the Campion History of Astrology and the Tester History of Astrology. So this is all astrology stuff, but the big history of the Thorndike history is fantastic. So I put my wax tablets back up with my geometry lesson and my Virgil lesson. Maybe with the shadow a little bit better you can see it, but there they go. All right, let's go down here. Oh boy, this is going to take a long time. The catalogs of books printed on the continent of Europe in the Cambridge Libraries, 1501 to 1609. This is great for rare book collectors. The Adams text. These are some of my books on pessimism. I'm kind of a pessimist myself, actually, a metaphysical pessimist, so I like to read pessimistic literature. So this is some stuff on pessimism and sort of Lovecraftian philosophy, which is real cheery, as you might imagine. Living next to that are books on spirit possession, because that's not creepy at all. So lots of books here on spirit possession and exorcism, specifically Jewish spirit possession and exorcism. I taught a class on that, I taught a class on that. That's true. So lots of books here on possession, and then some rando books on, the famous William Godwin book on the lives of necromancers, which is a fun little read. And then I have a couple collections here of some palm books written in Tamil. These are basically Buddhist scriptures, which are kind of cool. These are handwritten, and these palm scroll books are kind of cool. So I don't know if you can see them very well, but they're written primarily in Burmese and I think Tamil. So those are kind of cool. But possession, pessimism, cheery. Rando Coptic manuscript and some text from in Devanagari, but also, of course, a copy of one of Adam McLean's alchemical prints that's hand colored by him. So cool stuff, alchemy stuff here. All right, moving on. Gnosticism. Yep, of course, Gnosticism. So we got Nag Hammadi, we got Gnosticism. There's lots of Gnostic books. I have several Gnostic texts here. Some nice glassware, the reproduction 17th century glassware. So this is my Gnosticism shelf. We get into Manichaean and Mandean stuff over here as well. So some great classic text on the Mandeans and the Manichaeans. And some classic Gnostic texts, right? So we have the Hans Jonas, the Gnostic Religion, which is great, even though it's a bit outdated now. And you can begin to see we're also getting into some Emerald Tablet stuff there with the French translation and edition of the Emerald Tablet. So Gnosticism and Hermeticism, along with some reproduction 17th century glassware, and and a little lamp. All right. Moving on. This is more sort of rando stuff in my collection. You can see this in the background of the Esoterica episodes, I bet. So another puzzle box. We have a reproduction of the Phaistos disc and the clay jars that were used to put the Dead Sea Scrolls in. Some uranium glass. This is some of my pocket watches. Little tiny, cutest little tiny puzzle box, which is a lot of fun. The cuneiform tablet. There's another cuneiform tablet there. Some other scriptures here in Sanskrit. This is my little still for making, let's call them essential oils. So a little still there. You can also see my Dungeons and Dragons dice, of course. These are my metal Dungeons and Dragons dice. Let's roll for initiative 11. That's not very good. Uh-oh. Some rando coins. This is a cool 17th century Indian coin. You can see how thick this coin is. Huge. Bulky coin. These are kind of cool. So collect coins as well. So you can see some Arabic script on there. It's kind of cool. Mughal era coins. All right. Yeah, cuneiform. Rando cuneiform. All right. Now where are we? Willie B, folks. Willie B. There he is. William Blake. Willie B, the great prophet. So we have, of course, some William Blake. And then we're in Hermeticism land. So this is Orphic hymns, ancient mystery religions. This is firmly in the world of Hermeticism. And then we have some Cathar stuff. So I have some books on the Cathars. Pretty big interest in the Cathars. We have the 3-volume Irenaeus of Lyon, his book against heresies. So it's not complete. There's 5 books. They're still working on it. So that's number 1 through 3. Number 1 is book 1's the most famous. So those are decisively important books by Irenaeus against heresy, whatever how you would have it. But his book against heresy. Some books here on medieval heresy, the Lambert text. And then we transition into witchcraft. Of course, we transition into witchcraft. So we have some books here on Salem. We have some other texts have the Directorium Inquisitorum, some of the reprints of these books, because they're just no modern editions. They don't have modern editions of some of these books, and so I buy reprints of them. So Inquisition manuals. What's this? Another Inquisition manual, very cheery, torture women. It's fantastic. It's very disturbing. So, yep, we're in witchcraft land, which is not a terrible place to be. Old copy of the Dover Malleus Maleficarum, translated by Summers, Montague Summers, but it's been replaced. More text on the history of witchcraft. So we have the classic text here by Cors and Peters and things like this. So these books get a lot of use. The Compendium Maleficarum, various books on witchcraft. Martin Del Rio. Unfortunately, this is not a complete translation. It's basically a running summary, kind of. More books on witchcraft. The Malleus Maleficarum, of course. The 2-volume text by Mackay, and then the single-volume version there. Heresy in the Middle Ages. Caliban and the Witch. All of this is basically Lovecraft. Another puzzle box. So, witchcraft land. That's just all witchcraft stuff. Including the Margaret Murray witch cult in medieval and Western Europe. Fantastic. Completely untrue, and unfortunately not true, but great book. One of my former students drew me this picture while she was in class. It's fantastic. It's a booty dancing rabbi. This is great. There he is. I think he bears a somewhat resemblance to me. There he is. He is twerking, which is fantastic, wearing a tallis, so that's great. I love my students. This is my Lashana Tova card from one of my students. Fantastic booty dancing rabbi. I think it's probably me, although I don't think that I could booty dance like that. I should try. All right, what do we have down here, folks? Some random religious studies books. William James. 2 copies of The Idea of the Holy by Rudolf Otto. I don't know why I have 2 copies. I just love it that much. Of course, we also have it in the original German. Mary Douglas, very important scholar of religion. We got some Iliada. The Cat's text, Mysticism Philosophy, is kind of misshelved. It should probably be over there with the other mysticism books. A text on Roman religion, actually. I need to move that too. That doesn't need to be there. That's going to get misplaced. And rando out-of-place book on witchcraft and some random art supplies. But, yep, Das Heilige and William James, Mercia Iliade. Very important stuff there in the history of religious studies. All right, folks, I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to eat some lunch, come back, keep going through this. We have a lot more, books. So I'll come back and eat some lunch, come back, and we'll get into some Kabbalah and general occultism stuff. Yeah, random flask. All right, folks, welcome back. I got some lunch, and now we can continue on with the shelf tour. So I think we were just wrapped up witchcraft, and so let's turn our attention to, well, Kabbalah. So, as I mentioned earlier, all of my most of my Hebrew text of Kabbalah are actually downstairs, but here we have some more academic-y Kabbalistic texts. So this is the Tikkunei Zohar, the Sefer Zohar. So these are sort of standard academic Hebrew, Aramaic versions of the Zohar. Tishbe's famous Wisdom of the Zohar, the Joseph Don history of Jewish mysticism more generally. Random stuff like my scarificator, some 19th century bloodletting stuff. So from here, right, we go down, and we're getting sort of still into more Kabbalah in general, right? So this is Eitz Chaim. This is a Hebrew edition of the famous book by Shabbatai Tzvi, or not by Shabbatai Tzvi, about Shabbatai Tzvi by Gershom Scholem. That's right next to the English translation. Although I will say that the Hebrew edition has a lot more stuff in it than the English translation does. So this is a general long-running list of various things about Shabbatai Tzvi. Let's see what I have. Some stuff on the Don Meh, some stuff on Frankism. So there's a good bit there about Shabbatai Tzvi and some other things in Kabbalah as well. I got my giant D20, my coin of Caligula. There he is. Hi Caligula, how you doing? I have a couple of other coins. I collect medieval coins as well. So this is a solidus of Justinian. It's a coin of Bar Kokhba. So, and my crystal radio. All right, moving down here, still more in Kabbalah. So some books here on Nachmanides, the reception of the Zohar, some Moshe Idel, another pocket watch. This is my cool padlock I have. These are my Go stones. Those are the stones I used to play Go. You can see inside there, white and black, Yunzi stones. So what else do we have here? Shara Gilgalim, The Gates of Reincarnation, some books on the Golem, and things like that. So that's basically all Kabbalah there. Now down below this is actually rare books. We'll come back to those in a little bit, maybe end with those. And I have something of an announcement to make as well. But yeah, those are rare books in those boxes, but I'll come back to those in a second. I keep those out of the elements. All right, moving on. This is sort of more general occultism. Some stuff here on Jewish magic. This is the Pennsylvania stuff, Penn State stuff on the history of magic. Various kinds of books on the history of magic. Of course, obligatory copy of the Simon Necronomicon, the most ridiculous book ever in magic. So these are mostly academic studies of magic that run the gamut. So there's a huge range of texts there. The Greek magical papyri. So again, this is mostly just academic texts on the history of occultism, or magic specifically. Here we have the new Eric Purdue 3-volume Agrippa, which I haven't had the chance to look at yet, but I'm looking forward to looking at it. This is a Latin reprint of the text, along with a whole bunch of John Dee. As you would imagine, right? The great deal of John Dee texts, right? So we have a bunch of text here by John Dee. There's Hermes Trismegistus. Hi Hermes, how you doing, buddy? And those are the cool necropants from the Iceland Museum of Magic and Witchcraft. It's super weird. Random sky chart and some text on angel magic. So yes, this is mostly stuff on John Dee and some general occultism. So yeah, John Dee stuff mostly, and some Agrippa. So going down here, right? This is again more magic stuff. So these are some grimoires. There's my little amulet copy of the Sefer Zohar. So this is mostly grimoires. There's Abramelin, Ancient Christian Magic. Some text here on Rosicrucianism, the Book of Oberon, things like that. So this is mostly stuff on magic, although there's some Freemasonry thrown in here as well. It's a grab bag, occult grab bag. The occult grab bag continues on this shelf. Here we have this cool tarot, cool Goetia set that was sent to me by a fan of the channel. Kaczynski's fantastic biography of Aleister Crowley, some parapsychology, Francis Yates. This is general Western esotericism, academic stuff. We got books by Versluis and Walter Hanegraaff and those folk. So this is typically down here, this is mostly just standard Western esotericism, academic stuff. And then we have, of course, there's Picatrix. Hey, Denatro. So Picatrix. Down here,
This is mostly sort of out-of-date stuff. So this is an old copy of the GRS Mead edition of the Hermetica. There's some various other sort of occulty books down here. There's some stuff by Bruno, some Aleister Crowley stuff. So again, this is more grab bag stuff down here. So there's book 4 by Crowley, some other Mather stuff, The Book of Lies, always fun. Now this is a cool book that I started working on in high school, actually, Liber Nihili, which actually is going to be sort of a, not exactly a grimoire, but it was actually just kind of a notebook. And so this is actually something I started putting together in high school and never finished. Sort of alchemical symbols and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool from me being a strange young person, which turned out to be, continue to be strange. All right. This is my desk with some distillation equipment and various kinds of things. Like I said, this is all a bit of a mess. Some apple brandy. I might have to break into that in a little bit. So some apple brandy, wax seals, random copy of Sefer Raziel, 50 copies of Sefer Raziel for some reason. Cognac glass, some seals, things like that. This is my calligraphy table. This is where I work on calligraphy projects. So you can see some papyri and some vellum. Random copy of Isaac Newton's Principia. This is my framed Chrysopoeia of Cleopatra, which is quite nice. And over here brings us to language. So language stuff. I'm going to bore you too much with that, but this is just a bunch of language books that I have. It's kind of hard to reach these, but yeah, you see Indo-European stuff, and then it gets into more biblical Hebrew, Greek, Latin, Old English, some Old Babylonian, some books on the history of printing and history of writing in general, which I find to be terribly interesting. So there's a copy of the Voynich manuscript, obligatory copy of the Voynich manuscript. History of the English language, French, German, etc. But these are all like excess, redundant. There's some more language books hiding back there in the dark. I don't know, Jesse Byock's Viking language book, etc. How to teach yourself Hindi, whatever. These are calligraphy books that I have. Folks know I'm a calligrapher, so I have a range of calligraphy books that I've picked up over the years. Again, they're just sort of scattered up there. I will say, however, that this Mark Drogan book is my absolute favorite calligraphy book of all time. It's absolutely my favorite. Calligraphy supplies. So this is a bunch of different quills and stationery and paper and ink and things like this. So it's a bunch of calligraphy stuff. These books are actually my go-to language books. These are the books that I reference most often. So if I'm working in some other language and I need a reference book, I have them right behind me in my desk here. So we have Encyclopedia of Ancient Languages, and then we kind of run the gamut, starting with Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, Hittite, basic grammar of the Ugaritic language. There's some Middle Egyptian, of course, Hebrew, Aramaic, Sanskrit. The Dictionary of Indo-European Roots, folks, pound for pound. That's the best dictionary in the history of the world, pound for pound. This is a fantastic little volume. Greek lexicon, book we have modern Mendaic, so in case you want to read some Mendean stuff, Latin, Greek, obviously, Mayan, Old English, Old Norse, and even Tolkien. Even Tolkien gets a spot at the table. So this is all reference stuff when it comes to languages. When I need to, look something up in Mendaic or Sanskrit, these are the sort of my go-to books for language. All right, moving on. Now we come, of course, to alchemy. Now we have alchemy. So, this is all alchemy here. So this is a random grab bag of alchemy texts. This is the Berthelot collection of ancient alchemical texts. We have the Hermetic Mystery by Atwood. This is a random drinking horn. Very good for drinking ale and mead. Paracelsus, a boatload of Paracelsus. Splendor Solis, The Experimental Fire. One of the best alchemy books written in the past several years by Jennifer Rampling. Fantastic book. What else? What else? What else? Yes, we have. I'm gonna find places to put all this stuff. Random seltzer bottle. Sorry. All right. So more alchemy. So this is just random reprints of Basil Valentine, various kinds of historical alchemical texts that are worth having. Of course, the obligatory stuff by William Newman. Got the Golden Chain of Homer, very famous alchemical text. Newton the Alchemist, we just did an episode on Newton. Have some great reprints of alchemical books, right? So that's the Artis Auriferae, a reprint of it from the 16th century. The Business of Alchemy, a great book on the development of entrepreneurial alchemy. Of course, they have the Hermetic Museum, random chains and stuff. Of course, black metal pen, I think that's a weakling. So there's that. More alchemy, hiding, of course, behind this drinking horn. Yep, some more alchemy. So again, some more reprints. Again, so we have reprints like De Alchemiae. So that's a great one. Patai, the Jewish Alchemist, is a fantastic book. We have some Jung here, Paracelsus, etc. So a lot of reprints and alchemy books there. Just a couple random Mayan books. And this is, moving on, this is all philosophy that is non-European philosophy. So this would be my meager collection, very meager, admittedly meager collection of things like Chinese philosophy and Buddhist philosophy, Hindu philosophy, Indian philosophy. But try to have at least some of those books on hand. I try to read them pretty well. I feel like it's important to have a grasp of non-European philosophy because obviously there's some really, really important stuff that goes on over there. Even this great volume on Aztec philosophy, which is really nice. Have some Yukio Mishima right there. Taiyo Totetsu, his book on weightlifting, which is really great, and bodybuilding. Kind of a nutty dude, but super interesting. But yeah, this is all Indian, Chinese philosophy. It's a tiny, very meager amount, but again, it's still good to have at least some. All right, so moving on, this is absinthe stuff. Absinthe serving stuff, including some vintage absinthe that I'm going to be drinking in a couple days, actually, in some absinthe glasses. Of course, you know that I would have Dungeons and Dragons stuff, of course. So this is some of my Dungeons and Dragons books. So we have an original, actual complete copy of the Planescape starter set from the 90s. The Art and Arcana book, which is just one of the best Dungeons and Dragons books ever made. We have some reprints here, some books from the 90s from Planescape. You can tell I'm very, very keen on Planescape. There's some 5th edition books there. Even a reprinted copy of Chainmail. My real Dungeons and Dragons nerds will know what Chainmail is. So some Chainmail again down here. More Dungeons and Dragons. This is some reprints and some original AD&D stuff from back when I was a kid. Got Dark Sun there, Ravenloft. Some Pathfinder stuff that was gifted to me. I've never really played Pathfinder, but I got gifted it, so have it. The Haspe, random, of course, how about a random channeled book sitting by Dungeons and Dragons books, and of course the old Scott Hermetica, which is sort of just lurking down here near the Dungeons and Dragons books. So again, a healthy amount of Dungeons and Dragons books, not a ton, but those are them. All right, so let's keep going. A couple more shelves and we'll call it quits. How about that? All right, this is all random stuff now. It's going to get super random, and by random I mean random Tolkien, Umberto Eco, Stephen King, Marxism and Intersectionality. It's actually written by a friend of mine. Books on the distillation of alcohol, the Mishnah. I'll say again some random books on theology. Karl Barth and Paul Tillich. This is all sort of rando theology books that are just kind of I have around that are worth having. Some Abraham Joshua Heschel in there and Martin Buber, which is nice. Needs some neo-Hasidism. And speaking of Hasidism, here is a giant volume on the history of Hasidism. A book on the afterlife, some more books on Judaism. There's a cool Karaite anthology, which is a form of Judaism that rejects rabbinical authority. So that's a cool anthology of some of their writings. Down here, absinthe stuff. So we have a lot of books here on absinthe, including some of the famous ones by Marie Claude Delahaye. So these are like the standard absinthe books published in French. These are some excellent volumes on the history of absinthe, but again, pretty random stuff. It continues to be random up here, although this is kind of horror stuff in general. We have some Edgar Allan Poe and Dracula, a lot of H.P. Lovecraft, some super scary stuff right there. Nicholas Sparks, baby, A Walk to Remember, utterly terrifying. It's Mandy Moore. Mandy Moore is one of the ancient ones. So that's why it lives both in DVD form and in paperback form right next to The King in Yellow. Very terrifying. What else? These are just all super rando books. Some Thomas Ligotti. Ghost stories. Some stuff, The Exorcist. Again, this is all kind of super random stuff. You know, here, this is all alcohol related stuff. Folks may know I used to kind of work in the alcohol industry, but these are books on Calvados and fruit brandies and whiskey and home brewing. So we have a lot of books here on yeast and hops and malt and smoked beers and how to brew like a monk and all kinds of things. Cider, sake. It's the best book on how to brew sake. So this is all alcohol distillation stuff. So we have all of that. Jump down here. Some random Shelby Foote. So in case I want to read about the Civil War, and I can go dive into some quasi-lost causerism stuff, which is kind of detestable. Very detestable. At any rate, Shelby Foote. Have a random copy of Umberto Eco's In the Name of the Rose. Another copy of Frankenstein for whatever reason. Here's a bunch of Go books. So these are all Go theory. So Joseki's an opening theory and learning how to play Go. So those are my books on how to play Go. Not that I ever got terribly good at it, but those are all Go playing books. There's Bill Faulkner. Hi, Bill. Some short stories by Bill Faulkner, sitting on top of something about Muhammad. These are all books, the random stuff on some Japanese stuff, some Stephen King books, a random pile of God knows what, World War Z, how to read classical music, some books on Judaism, because how do we have so many books about Judaism? It's really crazy. It's out of control. We have so many books on Judaism. So, hi, Bill. Over here, I'm not going to bore you with all of these just because some of this is just like, some of this stuff is so just uninteresting. Hey, Steven Pinker is down there. Hi, Steven Pinker. My favorite introduction to logic textbook right there. Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, which is a fantastic book, actually. The Ascent of Man. These are some textbooks that I teach out of when I teach philosophy. Again, more random books. There's a copy of the Bible in Russian, just in case you wanted it. There's Din God Bizad, which is a copy of the New Testament in Diné, in Navajo language. There's a cool story behind that, but for another time. Walking Dead. There's the ethics textbook that I teach out of. Not The Walking Dead, the ethics textbook. Some literature, Camus, Dostoevsky. More Bill Faulkner, another textbook I teach out of. More Stephen King, philosophy of science books. And these are all travel books for places that we've gone or I've gone. So you can kind of see various places where travel books. We have the Silmarillion, of course, right next to Virgil in Paradise Lost. They're both epic, so they should live close to each other. Some William Blake, again, some literature, stuff like that. Again, this philosophy of religion textbook is the one that I actually teach out of when I teach philosophy of religion. So, some more Yukio Mishima. There's some more Karl Marx, Maimonides. Extra copies of Spinoza because you can't have too much Spinoza in your life. And that's sitting next to Albert Speer's Inside the Third Reich, which is kind of creepy. And up here, Dune. So we have some Dune books just sort of hanging out there, Dune and Dune Messiah. I have this old-timey history of the Christian church, which is really outdated, but still kind of good for some stuff. And, of course, this 10-volume Patristic Fathers. So this goes all the way from Polycarp and Irenaeus all the way up to, I think, almost to Augustine. I think the next big set is all Augustine. So that's all the Patristic Fathers, and that's a classic 19th century translation, which is fantastic. This is one of, I know it's sort of hanging out in a rando place, but these books are really, they really pay good dividends. So, again, a bunch of rando books sort of just stuck away on the landing, everything from H.P. Lovecraft to the Church Fathers. This copy of The Ancient Tract, this is a collection of H.P. Lovecraft's poetry. It's actually signed by S.T. Joshi, the big biographer of Lovecraft. So that's kind of cool. All right, one more group of books, and then we'll go and talk about some rare books. All right, finally, this last group of books up here on the 3rd floor. It's actually the old servants' quarters. We have our house has old servants' quarters. I'm going to bore you with these. This is almost all Marx and Marxism. So this is all radical political philosophy. Not just Marx and Marxism, right? There's also some stuff here on fascism. There's some Carl Schmitt in there. So this is left-wing and right-wing radical political philosophy. A bunch of stuff about Trotsky, In Defense of Terror, Homage to Catalonia, all these sort of things, right? So, again, some more books up here on, some books on Detroit, and some books on, again, most of this is like Marx and Marxism. And so down here, right, some more books on Marx and Marxism. It's a fascism reader, because you should know about fascism. People think that just because you have a book that you believe in something, but it's good to know this stuff. So, some Lukács. Again, I'm a fan of Lukács, the giant book on the German Revolution. So, really interesting stuff there. More stuff on political philosophy, Tony Negri, things like that. So, there's some stuff on the foundation of America. What else do we have here? The Origin of Capitalism. This is a funny collection of things. We have Mein Kampf next to Tikal, next to Daniel Dennett. Man, rando stuff. So, Origins of Capitalism to Mein Kampf to psychedelic drugs. That's kind of what's living up here. Also, that's the critical edition of Mein Kampf, actually. The 2-volume critical edition of Mein Kampf, just put out a few years ago in German. It's an excellent volume for understanding that terrible book. So, it's good. Again, weird stuff to have, but good, interesting, important. All right, last little group here. So, this is a lot of, so we start off with sort of ancient epics, so Gilgamesh, and some other myths from Mesopotamia, Homer, Thucydides. We get up to the Icelandic sagas, some obligatory Jackson Crawford stuff. And so we have a bunch of stuff here on the Viking sagas. I love the Viking sagas. So we have Viking saga stuff. We have Saxo Germanicus. And then we kind of kick through the Middle Ages. As you might imagine, I'm a big fan of the Middle Ages. And so you can see that we go from saga literature to the Nibelungenlied to Ibn Fadlan, Beowulf. I have several different copies of Beowulf, Popol Vuh, the Confessions of Augustine. Get into a lot of Irish stuff. The Táin, which is excellent, mostly about cattle rustling in medieval Ireland. Very strange, cool book. Getting into the High Middle Ages now. So some stuff with Ibn Gabirol, the Goliards, Grail text, Christine de Pizan. There's a lot of different things here on medieval literature. More medieval literature down here. It's going to be kind of hard to see because I can't get the camera down there really, but more medieval literature down there. Some books on Dracula and Elizabeth Bathory and the foundations of the medieval university. So it's more medieval stuff there. The medieval stuff continues, of course, over here with some more straightforwardly historical stuff. So the Dark Ages, feuding in medieval Iceland, Viking stuff, feudal society, Crusades. This is sort of the classic books about life in medieval times. Those are really, really good and really worth reading. Some various books on like money in the Middle Ages, 12th century Renaissance, the Templars, etc. So a lot of books here on the Middle Ages. I'm very interested in the Middle Ages. We got Bill Shakespeare also. Hi, Bill. So a lot of books in the Middle Ages, and finally a couple more books here, medieval books. We got a book about Dracula, the Levelers and the Diggers, super interesting stuff. 1491, of course, about conditions in this part of the world before the Europeans showed up, or at least before the Spanish really showed up. I guess the Europeans have been here with the Vikings around 1000. So let's go back downstairs to my study and let's talk about rare books. All right, as I mentioned, I'm also a collector of rare books. I'm a fan of rare books, and I have a small collection here of rare books. You can see some of these are quite nice, quite old. It's a copy of Iamblichus, which includes the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. This is printed in the 17th century, so it's quite old and again, quite beautiful, all things told. These old books are fantastic. You can see here, this is the actual Pymander. This is the Hermetica, not the Emerald Tablet, the actual philosophical Hermetica, and the translation by Ficino. So this is a really cool little volume. Some other volumes in here. What else do we have? We have a copy of De Vanitate by Agrippa. Again, a really nice little volume here, printed also in the 17th century. Copy of Malleus Maleficarum, printed in the 16th century. You can see Springer there. This is a copy. It's actually, in fact, the first Venetian copy of Malleus Maleficarum, printed there in 1574. It's a really beautiful, very lovely edition of the most famous witch hunting manual in existence. A lot of other books. And what's interesting, and I'll be making another separate video about this at some point, is that I'm going to be making these books available for purchase at some point soon. I'm going to be opening up a little bit of a rare book dealership. I'll be selling some of these rare books, a copy of The Natural Magic of Baptista della Porta. It's actually printed in Amsterdam. This book is also cool because it has some really great illustrations in it as well. Let me see if I can just find one. Yeah, it's a cool woodcut illustration. So it still has one of the clasps left on it, which is really, really nice. So this giant one over here is the Disquitorum Inquisitorum. You may recognize it from some of the new openings for the channel, for episodes. This volume is titanic. It's the largest encyclopedia of witchcraft and magic printed in basically in the Middle Ages and the early modern period. This is a really, really fantastic volume. Just has the real weight of history attached to it in many ways. But as I was mentioning just a moment ago, I'm going to be making some of these books available for sale. I'm going to be curating some of these books so that folks who are interested in rare books and who are interested in collecting rare books or want to start collecting rare books, antiquarian books on topics in topics on occultism and hermeticism. I'll be making some of these books available on my website pretty soon. So be looking for that. I'll make an announcement I'll talk more about it during the live stream actually later on, in celebration of getting 100,000 subscribers. So these are some rare books, primarily from the 17th and 18th centuries, 16th, 17th centuries mostly actually. So these are a collection of some rarer books. All right, folks. Well, sun's going down. It's time to, I think I'm going to pack it in. I'm going to go over there maybe and pour myself a glass of brandy. But this is kind of my lair, folks. This is where I hang out. This is where I make Esoterica episodes. You can see my rig over there. It's where I do live streams. These are some of the archival boxes I keep some of my the rare books in. You can even tell what I'll be working on next. For instance, boom, Yes, I'm going to do some work on Austin Osman Spar with a collaboration, and you can see, there it is. There's the play button, folks, the trophy that one gets when you get 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, all thanks to you fine people. And I'll be opening this during the live stream, celebrating getting up to 100K. So you can see it's still sealed from YouTube. So hope you tune into the live stream after you see this, or watch the live stream later if you've already, if it's already passed by the time you watch this this kind of strange episode. But at any rate, folks, I think I'm going to turn it in. This is sort of random light in the way. It kind of looks ridiculous, but that's kind of the stretch at some level. This is kind of where I hang out, where I do my work. Sit there at my desk and drink my coffee and work on the Kabbalah, or whatever it is that I'm working on at the moment. That's a copy of Or Ne'erav, the Cordovero's Introduction to Kabbalah. I'm working through it now, and I'll probably do a video about it at some point. Well, folks, from my study and from the ground floor of Esoterica, I hope you all are doing very well, and I will see you in the live stream.